Welcome back, folks. This is Locked On Chiefs. He's Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest, beat reporter extraordinaire, I'm going to say, and he is going to give us the lowdown not only of the Chiefs' win against the New York Giants, however slim that it was, as well as the moves that they've made in the aftermath. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Matt. How you doing?
Hanging in there after a late Monday night at Arrowhead. Sure, everybody had a sluggish Tuesday.
I think there was no way around that. We will definitely cover the game, but I think I flipped the topics. We should probably start with what's going on this afternoon, as this is way more recent. The Chiefs have made a couple of acquisitions here on trade down day, starting with Melvin Ingram from the Steelers, one that was rumored but thought they couldn't agree on compensation. Ended up being a 6th-round pick. How do you like this move for this team?
Yeah, I mean, it's the one need clearly we've been talking about the Chiefs have needing some depth and something to invigorate this pass rush. Ingram can certainly do that. I mean, we'll see how healthy he is. Didn't play last week because maybe a little bit of a groin injury. Might have been a little bit of a let's set Melvin Ingram before he goes on the trade deadline. But hey, there's reasons to be concerned. I mean, it wasn't a great ending in Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin didn't have a lot of sugarcoated it, but I mean, he buried some kind of criticism of Melvin Ingram and kind of him going out the door. So, hey, I mean, it's always possible that this might not work out. Maybe Melvin Ingram won't be a great fit in Kansas City. Maybe he won't be happy with his role. I mean, we will see. But it's the one move that I think the Chiefs could have made. Remember, they have very little cap space. So if they were going to acquire anyone, it need to be somebody who was affordable. Melvin Ingram is affordable. He fits a need. 6th-round draft picks, not a huge cost. So, I mean, for all those factors, I mean, I think you got to say that this was a deal that the Chiefs needed to make and did make. And now it's just a matter of, how's it going to work out for them?
Yeah, I think the 6th-round pick certainly would have been fodder for another trade of picks later in the offseason or something like that. So I agree with you. I don't think that's a problem. It comes in at $595K, as I understand. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it is. I had tweeted out earlier some numbers that were actually based on a prorated of his proration. So yeah, it's for what's remaining on his deal, it's got about $600,000. That's the cost for Melvin Ingram. So not that big of a deal. I mean, the Chiefs could have afforded it under the move that they made right there, but the second move of the day that they made actually freed up a little bit more cap space for them. So oddly enough, they actually end Tuesday with about 1,000 some odd more dollars under the cap than they started Tuesday with.
Okay. And that second move was Laurent Duvernay-Tardif going to the New York Jets, a team, as any team would. He had to waive the no trade clause in his contract in order to go. I know he released a statement. From my take on it, it seemed very much so that he realizes where he was with what the team likes in Trey Smith, and that playing time and continuing to be on the field was going to be a stretch, and that any way out was probably a good thing for him. Is that how you read it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that was pretty much the case. I mean, last night was the first time that he'd been active all season. There was no doubt at this point that he was generally just depth for the Chiefs. I mean, a depth piece that I surely would love to have. I mean, a guy like that being able to come off the bench for you if you need some help. Certainly big, but yeah, I mean, there was no way that barring injury that LDT was going to be able to get back into the lineup. If it's important for him to get a chance to play again, need to get out of Kansas City. So I think that's good. Honestly, I mean, a guy like LDT with his story, going to New York, going to the media market, maybe it's not a bad deal for him all across the board. I mean, probably a good place for him to be able to tell his story. So yeah. I don't think that's a bad deal for anybody all around. We'll see with Daniel Brown, what the piece that the Chiefs got back, how he fits in. Certainly the Chiefs have had some interest this year in working with a lot of multiple tight end sets. So maybe he does fit into that. Good special teams player. Also, I mean, could it be just a salary dump, and the Chiefs just getting the one player that was the most affordable and somebody that they could walk away from if they had to? Yeah, I mean, it could be. Like I said, I mean, as a result of these trades, the Chiefs actually increased the room under the salary cap. But it's hard to see Daniel Brown being any more than just, a guy on the end of the roster. But we'll see what the plan for him is. But the most importantly thing is that, yes, I mean, it freed up some more cap space, since the Chiefs, hey, they're going to need some other moves around down the road. I mean, you're always going to need to bring in some guys for injuries. You're going to have some more guys end up on IR. If that's the case, they needed a little bit more cap space, and now they got it.
I like what you said about LDT, because going to New York, that particular market, that's exactly what I thought too. Of any place where you can raise awareness for the things that you believe in provincial care and that kind of thing, I think that's a good spot for it. And there's always a tie-in, honestly. The league needs a positive story to talk about. You get him back on the field, that maybe that lets you do that. And I could even see a future where he's related to this league in a capacity on the medical side rather than the player side. Brown, I think you're spot on. And I think it makes me a little bit more concerned. I want to talk about that on the backside of this. Hey, Chiefs fans, want to let you know about an incredible app that everybody who drives or buys gas all by itself needs to know about. It's called Get Upside. Our listeners right now, you get 25 cents off of every gallon that you buy once you sign up with Get Upside. Then on top of it, they're offering right now, with a promo code of touchdown, an extra 25 cents, a bonus that you get back. That's 50 cents cash back on every gallon of gas that you buy in your first tank with the Get Upside app. There's a lot of people that drive around and put a lot of miles and a lot of gallons into their vehicles, and they're making a lot of cash back on this. All you have to do to become one of them is to sign up, get that app, Get Upside, and use the promo code touchdown. Then you can get all your rewards back through your bank account, PayPal, or e-card, whatever you would like. Go over there, get the Get Upside app, and use that promo code touchdown. Now, in acquiring Brown from the Jets, like you said, just a guy that's not, it's not to run down him, but he is a perennial special teams player. 44 catches in 7 seasons at this point. Not somebody who's going to be an offensive weapon, although, they've made hills out of ant fodder in the past, so maybe that can happen. But for me, it is surprising in that it ties in with a game where they baffled me with the lack of playing time for Noah Gray. 4 snaps on a guy that you spent the entirety of OTAs manhandling, squeezing into this playbook to try to make him viable. And I don't understand what the delay is, or why, of all positions, you would go out and look for somebody else at that position. Would you have him sitting there? Is this an alarm bell for what Noah Gray's becoming or not becoming?
A little bit. I mean, if for no other reason than, Noah Gray looked really good during OTAs, and during the beginning of training camp looked really good. When he didn't look good was when the pads came on. Mm-hmm. And that's always a kind of a warning sign, with players, that, when the hitting starts, that's when they kind of shy away. I mean, there's a lot of guys who've looked pretty good with the shorts on. It's when the football gets real that, that maybe they shrink a little bit. And that's not to say that, hey, that's going to happen to Noah Gray. Maybe it's just simply part of the transition. I mean, this is a guy that I think needed some more polish. I mean, I wasn't entirely sold that he was completely ready to come into the league and make a big impact. I think the Chiefs certainly thought that he was going to be able to make a more of an impact at this point than he has, which I think you're right. I mean, it does raise a little bit of a question mark, because I mean, even though, Dan Brown is not what I would call a prolific receiver at all, not a superstar blocker. I mean, he is a former basketball player. I mean, he's very Demetrius Harry-ish in some respects, in that he's a guy with some pretty good hands, can move a little bit, has some athleticism, can play special teams. I mean, sounds very, very familiar. But yeah, I mean, if Brown comes in and starts getting a lot of snaps ahead of Noah Gray, or Noah Gray becomes inactive, yeah, I mean, then I think you start to really wonder about what his future is. Don't write anybody off, but I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, Noah Gray has made less of a contribution than the Chiefs expected this season.
Yeah, I'm certainly aware of that too. We're going to run down all offseason about where it fits longer term. Hopefully they can get some play out of them. In the meantime, another position in this ball game against the Giants that drove me a little nuts, and that is the ghost that is Josh Gordon. In terms of targets, coming in underneath Blake Bell, who's who still didn't produce any catches with those targets. But is there still a disconnect with the offense with Josh Gordon, or is this just the rut and the routine and the rotation that the Chiefs seem to get in, and when they forget about some of the extraneous things that they should be trying to work in?
Well, I mean, to me, it plays into what I've thought for a long time and have said, and I said was kind of the one concern with Gordon. Andy Reid's offense is really hard to learn. I mean, guys need entire off seasons to pick it up, and sometimes that's not even enough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Josh Gordon's been a guy who's gone into New England and picked up an offense and started making contributions really quickly. Did the same thing in Seattle. I mean, it took a little bit longer in Seattle, but hey, he was able to do it and started contributing. Kansas City hasn't happened yet. And, some of it is probably certainly, Mahomes getting on the same page with him. Kind of, he's going to have a better idea about where other guys are over Josh Gordon. So unless a play specifically designed for Gordon and he knows where he's going to be, specific route, I think it's really hard to kind of shoehorn Josh Gordon into the offense at this point. But that said, I mean, he's still, I think, a more viable long-term threat than some of the other guys that they've got right now. I mean, this is Josh Gordon. I mean, he's got the athleticism to make it happen. It's just going to be a matter. I don't think it's necessarily a matter of Gordon picking up more of the offense or anything of that. I mean, he can pick up a little bit more, but I mean, some of this is just going to be that Josh Gordon's going to be kind of flying blind this year. I mean, when you're picking up an Andy Reid offense, it's just that complicated and hard to do. Doesn't matter how bright, Josh Gordon is, and people will rave about his football IQ. Mm-hmm. It's just that Andy Reid runs the most complicated offense in the league. And that's an issue. And until Patrick Mahomes gets comfortable with Josh Gordon and knows where he is and can find him, yeah, I mean, I think the Chiefs are going to be kind of, bumping their head into the wall on this one.
Let's double down on that concept about how hard it is to play in this offense that Reid has developed. Late this afternoon, another release that could be cheap, could be viable, and certainly understands the offense. Is there any reason for the Chiefs to look into DeSean Jackson?
No reason not to. I mean, I would probably kick the tires a little bit. I mean, I'm not aware of anything that's, soured in the relationship between Andy Reid and DeSean Jackson. That would certainly, be a big plus. And hey, one of the things with Josh Brown was that, or Josh Gordon rather, he felt, a little bit comfortable coming into this offense because there were some similar concepts being used in Cleveland when he was there. It's been a lot longer for DeSean Jackson being in an Andy Reid offense. So, I mean, some of the terminology, some of the concepts will have certainly changed. So it wouldn't be necessarily a completely smooth transition, but I'd kick the tires, see what happens. I mean, because if this is a guy that you can bring in that's affordable, somebody who wants to be here, that could be a nice addition. Let's see.
I think it's worth taking a peek. We have to get into what Melvin Ingram does to the defensive front, who's playing well, and what they can do from this point. We're going to do that right after this. It's that time of year again when all eyes turn to football and the NFL gets back on the gridiron. As always, BetOnline.ag is your number one place for college and pro games to get you into the action. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including the biggest online contest, $500,000 NFL mega contest, as well as the $200,000 NFL Survivor contest. They're both open now at BetOnline.ag. Head to the website, use your device, whatever it is, and you'll get a 100% welcome bonus. Take advantage of it and get in on the opening day super promo. $25 bet. Even if you lose, you get your money back. BetOnline is the fastest, easiest way to get all of your bets into the action, football and everything else. Use our promo code Locked On over at betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts. One thing you have to know that we're going to tell you about is Built Bar, because they are the best tasting protein bars ever. And it doesn't matter what your favorite flavor is, whether it's coconut brownie chunk or maybe the new grasshopper, the mint. It's incredible. And I even like, this is my new favorite, the toffee almond. All of these have things in common, including 17 grams of protein, only 130 to 150 calories, depending on the flavor. There's all kinds of amazing flavors that keep circulating and lots of special limited editions that you have to go to the website to check out. You can get that mint brownie or the raspberry or any of these whenever you go over to BuiltBar.com. When you do, use the Locked15 code and you'll get 50% off of your first order. That's the promo code Locked15 at BuiltBar.com. Making the trade for Ingram certainly gives you another bookend Frank actually had 5 pressures against the Giants. I think that's more about the Giants than it is about Frank, but that's a whole other day to discuss that. What this does is give you 3 guys that you have to pay attention to, though, and I think that is helpful. Do you think overall that this front, even a little bit more flash from Jaron Reed, can they get something going here in the second half of this season?
I mean, it's going to be a little bit dependent on how they're able to use these guys. For one, we are probably talking about the Chiefs having 3 guys you got to pay attention to, but 3 guys that are also all hurt. Like I said, we'll see. He'll go through the physical, and the Chiefs will kind of figure out where Gordon is. But we already knew he had a little bit of a knee problem coming into the season, and was out last week with the groin injury that may or may not have been a play. I mean, we'll see. Chiefs will kick the tires on it and see what happens there. But we know Chris Jones and Frank Clark have been hurt, and I'm not sure that either one of them. I know Chris Jones told us, Monday night, he's not 100%. Frank Clark, even though he's hinting at us that he's getting better, I still don't think that he's 100%. That's 3 guys that you do have to rotate a little bit. Then, yeah, I mean, that's what you're maybe acquiring here is just a little bit of depth. And the question is going to be, can you get those 3 guys on the field at the same time? Well, if the Chiefs continue their plan with Chris Jones, which is that he's going to be an edge defender on early downs and then kick inside on passing downs, then really your only opportunity to get the 3 of them on the field is in pure passing downs. And if that's the case, it's going to be the Chiefs dependent on getting offenses in the passing downs on first and second down. And that's continues to be the trouble. They did it really well against the Giants on Monday night, and that allowed them to get more Chris Jones on the inside, and I think he was a little bit more productive as a result of that. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be completely up to how the Chiefs are viewing this transaction. Is this hey, you know what, we can give Chris and Frank a little bit more rest, rotate Melvin Ingram in there, and so there's not too much of a load on all 3 of those guys? Or is this Melvin Ingram's here to play the edge, Chris is just going to move inside whether he likes it or not, he's going to be playing more on the inside, and they're going to try and get those 3 guys on the field? I mean, that's, to me, the question about how, the Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid want to play it. Might not find out immediately. I mean, I can see the Chiefs coming in and kind of working Ingram in, not just throwing him out there for 80% of the snaps on day one. So we will see. It might be a few weeks before we figure out what this rotation is. And then, too, I mean, if this rotation is going to work.
Right. There are still some question marks there. I think we found some answers at the next level with the way that not only Nick Bolton continued to play at middle linebacker, but Willie Gay starting to really come into his own. Back-to-back interceptions now. I think a guy that showed that he can play all phases of the game. At this point, when Anthony Hitchens returns, does he need to go play Sam and not go back to that middle linebacker spot?
I mean, I think that would be the best defensive look for this team. And maybe we saw a little bit of a hint of it, against the Giants. I mean, there was still a lot of rotation amongst, those 2 guys, and include Ben Neiman in that too. I mean, they were just basically fairly even as far as playing time goes. I mean, yeah, Neiman and Bolton had a few more snaps than Willie Gay did, but essentially, I mean, it was a pretty balanced rotation amongst the 3, with, Dan Sorensen seeing a lot of time in the box too. I mean, he was essentially that 4th linebacker against the Giants. You get Hitchens back. I mean, yeah, I think your best lineup is exactly what you said. I mean, throw Hitchens in at the Sam, let Bolton stay in the Mike. I mean, I think they would still, even in that scenario, I think they would still rotate Hitchens and Bolton a little bit. I think they would still let, Hitch play a little bit of middle. Let's see. I mean, I think, they let the Chiefs, Andy Reid, big philosophy, hey, you don't lose your job due to injury. This might be one of the exceptions to the rule where maybe your role changes a little bit, because I think this defense has been better with Bolton and Gay out there. I mean, you can see, I think that those 2 are really playing off of each other. They enjoy playing together. They complement each other really, really well. So I think you need more of those 2 guys, and Hitch, I think, just needs to. I mean, I think it's time for him to find a different role.
Yeah, I mean, and certainly when they're in the base and you can play all 3 of them, great. It becomes who's going to be out there when it's 2 linebacker sets, and maybe there is more rotation there. Willie Gay needs to be out there the entire. The thing that I'm pointing at is that it is time to replace Ben Neiman in this rotation and not have him on the field, because you're not getting the level play that you have to have from him and Dan Sorensen together, bumping everybody down. Everybody's up in arms that Jaylon Smith's been released again. I am not one that is a proponent of this, because if you look at this season in both towns that he's been in, I don't know that he's an upgrade even over Ben Neiman. Do you think this is even worth looking at for the Kansas City Chiefs?
You got 2 teams that 7-1, right? that have passed on him in one season, that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
And then you look at the film, and that's a bad sign too.
Okay.
So yeah, no. You got two young guys. You don't want to mess with those two young guys, and you got enough. You got enough problems as it is. No, you don't need that problem.
Folks, Dan or Matt and I are together on this for right now. We'll get Dan's opinion later. Even though you might be tempted to try to upgrade over Ben Neiman, Jaylon Smith isn't the answer. So we're going to leave it at that. The last thing, Matt, this was a team that they should have spanked, quite frankly. There has to be, as much as there's relief for getting a W, there has to be some down faces in Arrowhead today. Is this enough for them to get going in the right direction, or is this still a floundering ship with no direction?
I mean, I think the really frustrating things is that the last two games seem like a big step backward for this team. Especially the Giants game. I mean, I think it's part of the same, downward step with the Titans game.
Mm-hmm.
The offense is not the same offense that we saw a month ago. It's not just even the turnovers at this point. It's not the penalties that are killing this team. I mean, it's just not making plays. A month ago, it was simply that this Chiefs offense was running up and down the field when they weren't turning the football over. Now they're not doing that. And hard to say, to me, how much of that's really on defenses and how much of it's really on the Chiefs right now. Thought the opening drive, which was obviously very well scripted, very effective. It was exactly what the Chiefs have basically been indicating that they need and want to do. They used a lot of short passes. They used a lot of quick hits, working the edges, all these things to move the ball down the field. And just, hey, if you're going to do that die of 1,000 cuts, the Chiefs did that. I mean, they took advantage of exactly what the Giants were giving them. Got a bad break on the interception that maybe was a little bit of a press from Mahomes on, trying to fit a fastball into a very tight window. But then the offense comes out for the next couple of drives, and it wasn't turnovers or penalties that were killing them. It was just misconnections. It looked like that they got away from certainly the quick passes. They were taking a few more shots downfield. Mahomes was, and I get that this is what everybody loved about Mahomes early, and it still is an incredible talent of his, is to find, receivers downfield and identify that. But when teams are playing you the way that they are right now, there's never going to be anybody open. I mean, you've really have just got to sacrifice those downfield plays and take a look at what's underneath and what's intermediate, because it seemed like last night a lot of secondary targets were open in favor of throws that were going to guys that weren't open, or Mahomes was escaping, pressure that I'm not sure was there, trying to buy time for something to open up downfield. And, that's where I think the next step is that as much as I think that Patrick doesn't want to do it, yeah, I mean, you're just going to have to continue, that take what's there. And some of that is going to absolutely have to be on the play calling, because what? It may be that you just can't give Patrick the option of going downfield.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you just need to force it that, Patrick, you cannot be able to throw the ball 50 yards down the field to Tyreek if Tyreek's not down there. And I think last night proved, if anything, I don't know. I've never known how you defend Tyreek Hill on an 8-yard out. I don't know how you defend that.
Yeah.
I know how you can defend him on a 50-yard bomb, because you can put 3 guys on him. You can't defend Tyreek Hill on some of these short and intermediate routes. And to me, I mean, take advantage of that. I mean, especially with the way that teams are beating the crap out of Travis Kelce right now. I mean, you're just going to have to continue to do exactly what I think this team did really nice last night. Take advantage of the pop passes, take advantage of, the motion to get some of your speed guys out on the edge. And because those were brutally effective. But I mean, what was it? The stat? Mahomes completed all 15 of his passes behind the line of scrimmage. And a lot of those were shovel passes, screen passes, pop passes. My numbers, I believe it was 14 of 33 on throws beyond the line of scrimmage. That's not good. And if that's what your quarterback's doing, you can't do that right now.
No.
Then you scheme around what's wrong with your quarterback.
Yeah. Take the jab. It's there. Pepper them all day long. Folks, we're going to get more into this as we get ready for the next contest against the Packers. We'll try to circle back with Matt. If not, we'll definitely have him for post-game. Matt, thanks for taking the time today.
Absolutely, Ryan. Take care, my friend.
Folks, you have a good day. We'll talk to you next.